So get ready, everyone, for a really lively and interactive chat about smart everything, sustainability, and all the cool ways humans and machines are teaming up for a global makeover. Perfect. So maybe before we can get started, let me just give you a round of introductions. My name is Thuraya Tabbara, and I am going to be your moderator for today. I'm a business innovation consultant at SAP. I'm based out of Germany, and I'm really passionate about helping businesses of all scales to innovate and thrive in the digital economy. Today, I take part in shaping SAP's future innovation strategy and advising internal product teams on when and how to incubate innovation products and services in a fast and agile manner. In my free time, I really love and I'm passionate also about mentoring startups based out of Germany and also the Middle East. And now I'm super excited to introduce my distinguished panelists. Dr. Kathy Mulligan, you are a visiting lecturer at Imperial College Business School and founder of the Sustainable Society Digital Collective. She's an interdisciplinary researcher whose main focus, whose main area of focus is digital sustainable development, and she combines real-world expertise in senior leadership positions with teaching and research. She's also founder of the Sustainable Society Digital Collective. She has published 7 books on digital technologies, multiple research papers, and holds several patents. She has a lifetime research leadership positions with teaching and research, and she has a lifetime research grant portfolio of £6.1 million, covering research projects in India, Malaysia, the EU, Australia, and the UK on digital sustainability. Catherine completed her master's in engineering for sustainable development and her PhD at the University of Cambridge. She has been an expert at the World Economic Forum for over 5 years and was a member of the United Nations Secretary General's high-level panel on digital cooperation in 2018 and 2019. Dr. Kathy, it's a pleasure having you with us today.
Wonderful to be here. Lovely to meet you.
Great. My next distinguished panelist for today is Rula Khouri, who is a technology strategist holding a master's degree in computer science and is currently pursuing an MBA with an emphasis on disruptive technologies and business analytics from the American University of Beirut. With over 18 years of robust experience, Rula stands at the intersection of business and technology. She has a dynamic mix of expertise when it comes to the technology space and has crafted a narrative of innovation during her experiences at Deloitte, Microsoft, and IBM. Her knack for design thinking and human-centered design is rooted in a profound understanding of disruptive business models and technologies. She doesn't just envision the future, she architects it, turning complex business problems into innovative technological solutions. Awesome. Rula, we are really happy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much.
All right, with almost over 200 participants right now, maybe we can just kick start it maybe at the beginning with any starting words from your side on the topic, Dr. Kathy. Rula.
Please, Dr. Kathy.
Well, okay, wonderful. So thank you so much for the invitation to be here today. And I think, this idea of the fifth industrial revolution, I think is a really fascinating topic because it's an evolution of the fourth industrial revolution, which was really looking at digital technologies, and it really focused a lot on efficiency, automation, and artificial intelligence. So using digital technologies to completely transform the way we do things. I think the fifth industrial revolution is a really interesting topic because it shifts the focus towards the integration of these technologies with human creativity and also human values. And in particular, I like it because it sort of has an emphasis on sustainability and the betterment of humanity, if you will, from a very simplistic perspective. So for me, the key aspects of the fifth industrial revolution include sort of human-centric technology, emphasizing human values and also ethics in technology development so that, they're used in ways that are beneficial to society as a whole. I think there is a lot more around the collaboration between humans and machines, which I think is a sort of more an approach of a symbiotic relationship between humans and machines where, as previously we've been thinking about humans being replaced by machines. And I think that's a fundamental difference for me. And of course, the other thing that I think is sort of a three-pronged approach is sustainability, innovation for social good, but also this idea of balancing profit with purpose as opposed to just looking solely at profit. I think the fifth industrial revolution recognizes the fact we're facing a climate crisis and that we need these technologies to help us, create an economic structure that is not just about the financial value of something, but also about environmental protection, resource conservation, and also social equity. So for me, it's much more about the creation of a new type of economic and social structure. So I'll pause there to give Rola some space as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kathy. So the space that you've just kind of envisioned for us is honestly the space that I am also excited about when I talk about Industry 5.0. But I want to bring the other angle of it with it, which is basically, how does it disrupt, right? How there is significant disruption to the business models that we are kind of encountering in the market right now, and it's going to reshape industries. So that's another angle to the conversations that we will hopefully be discussing today. So reshaping industries, the workforce dynamics, it's going to compel us to rethink our approach to innovation, and of course, innovation under the umbrella of sustainability and ethics. And when we say sustainability, honestly, it's going to tackle all angles. So it's the environmental, it's the social, and the sustainability from a practice perspective. Now we see that pivotal shift from efficiency driven automation to the human-centered collaboration, right? So this is where that's the shift between 4.0 and 5.0. And the amazing thing is that 5.0 kind of builds on or depends on, I would say. So whoever did not keep up with what's happening in 4.0 will have a struggle today to transform their business model. So it builds up on what was built on what was developed in 4.0, be it integrating all the technologies, AI, IoT, robotics, having a robust data platform for what's next, and it puts all of that and puts the human on top of it, actually in the middle of it. So we were trying in 4.0 to put the human, to make it work with the human, but today I think that's basically we are designing with the human in the middle. It's a human-centric design, so it goes all the way. When you're thinking how to disrupt, you put the human in the middle and you disrupt around the human. Now there is an impact on the various industries. I would say, again, from my perspective, I see the industries that are mostly around the human, like healthcare, like financial services, all of these topics that bring us back to how do we bring a better, how do we make the world a better place. These are the industries that I believe will be impacted first with the 5.0. I'm calling it a revolution, to be honest, at this point. There is a workforce transformation aspect. As we are seeing, there's a lot of lot of talks, lots of conversations around what do we do with the workforce with the AI coming to the picture. So there is a big space over there for us to hopefully contribute and make sure that this transition takes care of all of these aspects, and of course embracing innovation with agility. So how do we make it part of the even the DNA of every company to adapt to innovation? Because in the past, I remember, when I was in university, the things that I studied were used like maybe 10, 15 years later. There was a gap, and there's a study around it which I can share, probably in the after this session. There was a gap between the innovation that happens, or the thought leadership that happens on the academics, with what's happening on the ground in the industry and in business. Today, that gap is becoming smaller and smaller. So innovation and using, and that collaboration between the thought leadership and what's happening on the ground needs to be bridged at some point. So yeah, I'll leave it back to you, Thuraya. Let's start the conversation.
That's already a perfect start. You already have touched upon all the points I would love to ask you more about. So let's just get started. That's really amazing. Maybe actually starting from where you dropped off, Rola, you mentioned a little bit more about how, or actually Dr. Kathy, you mentioned also about how those 5.0 technologies are already, we can see how they're disrupting traditional business models. Maybe, Dr. Kathy, could you share a little bit more of light on that, and how do you see this change and impact in today's world specifically?
Unmute myself. Yeah, so I think we can see, for example, if we think about some of the different ways that it's impacting industry already, we're seeing a lot of impact across several different industries. I mean, Rola just actually mentioned a few already, but for me, one that's extremely interesting is, of course, the energy industry, with the creation of smart grids and enhanced smart grids, increase efficient energy use, reduce waste, facilitate integration of different types of energy sources into the grid. We can also see agriculture, things like precision agriculture, AI technologies, for example, are already enabling more precise application of water, fertilizers, and pesticides, so reducing waste and improving our environmental impact, and also helping create sustainable farming practices. And then, of course, I think, in areas like manufacturing and transportation and logistics, we're seeing a lot of the application of these technologies for efficient resource uses, but also things like route optimization and things like that. Some areas that I think could be quite exciting is construction, and real estate. I think we're starting to see a lot more impact in green building design and also sustainable urban planning. And one thing that I think could be really quite interesting is this idea around sustainable investing. For example, we can see that digital technologies have been used quite a lot in areas that are helping the creation of sustainable finance, and also potentially doing things like risk assessment, assessing environmental and sustainability portfolios and the related risks in different types of investment portfolios. I think Rola also mentioned healthcare, where I think we're seeing quite a huge transformation already, where we're seeing, AI, optimizing resources, reducing waste, but also, now becoming better at identifying or helping doctors to identify different types of diseases, and even in some instances create Medicare or medical plans for patients. That's just some examples.
Perfect. But I mean, Thuraya, just to add on this, and maybe these are amazing examples, like straight from the field. But I think to take it maybe a step out of that, like, where do we see the disruption happening at the business model itself, right? So we see it. It's profound what I'm seeing, because I'm kind of in the middle of it. So it really amazes me, and the conversations, and being in the UAE as well is like, it's like it's on I would say on steroids. It's like going and having those conversations are really, things that happen fast as well. So we have the conversation, and also the application happens fast. So what I want to say is at the level of the business level, the business model kind of disruption, we see, of course, now personalization over standardization, right? So we see the industry, the composition of the industry 5.0, and what we're using as technology and the capabilities that we have, they facilitate right now, for example, mass customization. Customer experience became, everybody is now entering a website expecting that they're going to be asked not asked a few questions, expecting the website to kind of adapt to what they would usually buy or their preferences and so on. There is another shift, of course, when it comes to the I would say like the collaboration between the humans and machines. So I'm seeing that very clearly right now. And when we talk about digital twins and what's happening, at the manufacturing, as Dr. Kathy mentioned. So these are things that goes from automation all the way to seeing machines being part of even the I would say the day-to-day job, daily job specific tasks, being a person with a machine just doing the task with the machine. So there is the cognitive computing topic, which you see that AI and machine learning are being used almost in every decision that is being made in right now in businesses. We see agility, right? So businesses today, we used to see, strategic planning, and you put a strategic plan for 3 years, and then you start to execute, and you kind of revise it every 6 months, right? Or it was every 3 years. Now it's every 6 months. Today, I go and visit one customer, and I meet them the next month, and those priorities and what's happening in the market immediately impacts them. So that agility, supported by all of those tools and the data being super organized and usable, is also a shift in mindset in the industry today. Sustainable and ethical practices, of course, it's we're seeing COP28, we're seeing it's coming to the top of mind of every single institution, honestly, that I interact with. Of course, I'm talking at the enterprise level, but still, it is a top of mind in every conversation that I have on a daily basis. Now, the implications of it, of course, the workforce transformation, and that's something that we need to tackle on both ends, the challenging part of it, and of course, the prospects of it. So there is a huge prospect for the humans to kind of evolve from a creativity and different aspects than just repetitive jobs. And I believe that would help us, honestly, rather than inhibit us from becoming better. So these are angles that when we talk about the disruption, we're seeing that now, instead of every 3 months, every 6 months, I'm having those conversations. I'm having them on a weekly, if not on a daily basis today in the market.
Interesting you say that, Rola. I couldn't agree more, especially on the gap that you mentioned. So usually enterprise system providers in the past, it used to be really every year or two that you kind of start thinking about what's the next big thing, or how can you switch to your clients a different mentality or a different vision. But today, I do totally agree. It's a day-to-day challenge where businesses more than ever need to immediately adapt to this agility and really fine-tune their business models so they could really stay in the market. And I also see that this is really happening at a different speed, and a gap that we as humans definitely need to adjust to. But maybe diving deeper into what you just really, both of you, highlighted on. This disruption comes with a lot of really interesting benefits to our humanity, but also a lot of challenges. Those challenges that businesses face, one of which is mainly adapting those technologies and realizing their ROI, right? So we talk a lot every day about how amazing those technologies can help revamp our businesses and business models, and enhance our day-to-day interactions. But we're not sure about how our companies are going to adapt those technologies, and when do we really realize their return on investment. So could you shed some light, maybe Rula, first on how do you think this could come into place? What kind of challenges businesses are facing today?
Sure. So from a I would say challenges perspective, I believe, look, first and foremost, which is the top of mind of every enterprise I work with, data security, data privacy. I mean, security, of course, is a big topic. It always has been. It always will be. I see as well. There are several topics around quantum computing coming into the picture, and how do we deal with that? Computing power that will kind of trump every security tool that we have today. So there are discussions there, which of course, not the topic of our conversation today, but privacy is, and with the increased use, especially of the IoT devices, right? It's taking every single almost move you make, it's being recorded somewhere. Your phone, every step you take, it's recording even the direction that you're going, right? So IoT combined with cloud computing, putting the data all together in one place, how do you manage that? There is a lot of risk related to not just losing that data, but sharing it with the right audience. Let me put it this way. So this is a big challenge, and it's the top of mind of every company today. The second thing that I see is, of course, and I've mentioned that in the beginning, the workforce, and I want to focus on that just in a minute or so, just to say that there is a lot of work that's being done around the topic, but there is a humongous amount of work that needs to be done to ensure that transition goes smoothly. So today there is a new skill set, and it will create a huge gap with the current workforce capabilities. So upskilling, reskilling, even the education sector needs to adapt to all of this. And I see some work being done, especially because I'm studying now at AUB and at the American University of Beirut. I see a lot of work being done there, and the education and how that's changing on a daily basis. Like, I started my MBA in a certain manner. Today, even the way the education is being transferred to me is changing. Like, that's within a matter of months. So I see the shift, but there's a lot to be done. And of course, when we talk about technology, not everybody is ready, and yes, some are ready more than others, but there are several studies, and when you ask CIOs, there are several studies that talk to CIOs in the market and asks them, based on this maturity level, where are you? And I would say only 20% of them said, not that we're at the next step, that we're ready for the next step. So what happens to the rest, and how do we make that gap smaller by helping with that technological integration, right? There is the supply chain is a big topic that came with COVID, to be honest, but it made it very clear to us that this is an area that will be a topic that would move, I would say, GDPs of countries at some point, So modernizing the supply chain can be disrupted. I mean, it's of course supported by Industry 5.0, but there's an angle to it as well that it can be disrupted by the global market fluctuations, what's happening today, geopolitical issues, pandemics that happen. So how can you maintain a smart, connected supply chain in the face of all that's happening, be it trade tensions, being raw material shortages? It's all connected by a technology. So how do we ensure that technology can overcome all of that is another angle. And the consumer. So the consumer is a challenge, but I think that's the easiest now they're expecting us to be on top of our game from a technology perspective as any business. So I think the consumer adaptation is one angle, but I feel it's an accelerator rather than a challenge. But we'll still find, of course, there are 8 billion people on the globe. We cannot just focus on those, 2 or 3 billion that are enabled. We have to focus on the entire population. And this is where, as Dr. Kathy rightfully said, finance, the healthcare industry, all of these topics, inclusivity in all of these services, this needs to come because the human is the center. So we can't cater for one portion of the globe. We have to cater for the 8 billion. So that's some of the angles on the challenges.
Absolutely. That is definitely an interesting insight. And also it is really important to shed some light on the importance of educating consumers or potential consumers on the potentials of AI and how, or any kind of 5.0 technologies that could impact their day-to-day lives with what's coming eventually. So that's great. Maybe Dr. Kathy, could you shed some more light as well on the same topic when it comes to challenges that emerge with those disruptive technologies, but maybe where do you think responsible AI could come into place when those technologies are happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think like all technologies, so I'm old enough now that I have been through several technology implementations in my life cycle, and I have I've been responsible for some of them as well. So I think with every generation of technology, we have what is called unintended consequences, and I think this is something that we are seeing quite a lot with AI. There is, what the technology is intended for, and then what it's actually ended up being used for. So, for example, I spent a lot of my earlier career in telecommunications, and it was very exciting to roll out 3G, 4G, and those kind of things. But we never thought actually that the mobile devices would end up tracking and tracing humans, around the everywhere, like Rula was saying about the privacy invasion, potential privacy invasion from those. So I think we always need to be cognizant and vigilant about the unintended consequences, because if you give technologies into the hands of average everyday people, you'll see very good uses of the technology. You will also see the very human, not so good uses of technology. So we just need to think about that. When it comes to responsible AI, I think there are quite a few things that we actually genuinely need to ask ourselves. The type of technology that AI is, it can actually, firstly, it can highlight a lot of our biases. We've seen a lot of examples of bias being highlighted by AI. That can be a good thing, can also be a very bad thing. So the famous example, of course, was Amazon, who, when they used AI for their hiring processes, it was used for a very good original reason. They wanted to speed the process up because they received so many applications for software engineers. But they automatically rejected anyone who was not a white man, because everyone else, the model had been built internally on what their existing, software engineers looked like. Obviously, they removed that very quickly when they realized what it was doing. But there are lots of other examples, for example, in the US judicial system, where you can see bias is really deeply built into our data sets. And that can do a couple of different things. That we can, agree that there is a bias and then work to fix that bias. The problem is that more technology is not necessarily going to help you fix the inherent bias. So there's a couple of different things. That's why the fifth industrial revolution is about enabling the connection between the human and the technology, which means you put a human in the loop, really, with regards to AI. But also, I think when we're dealing with responsible AI, a lot of people talk about the ethical implications of AI and getting AI to be ethical. I think one of the things we need to think about there is really, whose ethics are we actually talking about? If we're talking about global technologies, whose ethics are we actually implementing and embedding into these technologies? It's an important question for us to think about. And then the other one that I think we always seem to get into the discussion about AI sort of automating humans, or automating away humans' jobs. I think there is something really interesting that's happening in the world today as a result of digital technologies, not just as a result of digital, but speeded up by digital, which is we're moving into what could be a post-money economy. We're actually moving into a situation where the digital technologies are so valuable, what they do is so valuable, we could actually move beyond the requirement for money. That's a very academic, theoretical argument for you, but you could envisage a situation where it's actually the data that becomes so important and so valuable that we move into a new type of economy where it's actually the data that we're exchanging with one another that becomes more valuable. So, for responsible AI to take off, I think we need, Rolla also sort of touched on this a little bit. Currently, what we see is a lot of technologists trying to do ethical AI. And I think what we need is a discussion across society, because it's about people's jobs, the way that society works, the way the government works, the way cities work. I think we need a much broader discussion in order to understand what we actually want to achieve with these technologies. So, things like your knowledge summits are important things where we try to discuss some of these ideas, right?
Absolutely. That's definitely on the point. And I'm not sure, but when it comes to the bias that AI brings in, do you think, Dr. Kathy, there will be some time where we will really be able to eliminate completely this kind of bias? Or you think it will always be there eventually and we have to look into ways to control it?
I think as humans, we're incredibly good at embedding bias into different things. I think it is potentially, it's a form of negative reflection of being human almost, right? I think we have to admit that part of being human is some of the bad things that we collectively as humans do. So I think that, will we eliminate bias? No, not through technology. But what we can do is use digital technologies to highlight where hidden bias is. And, then we have to actually stop and make the choice to say, well, actually, we can see that this data is really biased, so we can't use it.
Yeah.
until we bring in fresh new data sources to make it less biased. But that's a conscious decision, and it requires a human and humanity to be in the loop of the technologies.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just out of curiosity, how would people eventually be able to identify that this piece of content has bias? Would this be by comparing it to different types of publications, or?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of examples. So the one with Amazon, where they suddenly realized they're only interviewing sort of, blokes called Chad, basically, who played lacrosse. Then you start to see it. But you can also see it, for example, in the US judicial system. They noticed that the data was inherently biased because it was, for people of color, it was giving much higher suggested jail sentences. So that took a few months to sort of realize that actually, this is extremely skewed and biased data. So I think, by applying common sense, hopefully, people can see that their data sets are producing, not the results that they wanted, or the unbiased results that they were hoping for. That requires us to be reflective in what we're doing, however, right? I think you can't always rely on the machine. You've got to rely on yourself as well and think.
Absolutely.
I guess that's the end. We need to think, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, when you mentioned, when Dr. Kathy mentioned common sense, I was like, that's a big problem.
Yeah, common sense is going to be also biased. Absolutely. Great. Loving our discussion. Maybe on to the next topic, which I think you've already touched upon, Rola, and you already a little bit emphasized on the impact of all those emerging technologies on the workforce. But maybe a little bit deeper, in your opinion, how can companies today embrace innovation at the core of their business while ensuring that they still keep up with agility? Any best practices from your side, any strategies or tactics that you would like to share with us?
Sure. So today, I think this is an area that I advise, I advise my customers on a regular basis, to be honest. So it started with digital transformation. And again, I emphasize this on this platform that digital transformation is not a project. It does not end. It's called digital transformation. It's just a key term that we use, but change is the constant. It's a process. It doesn't end. It's the way you actually do your business. So that's a very important concept to adopt when you're doing even your day-to-day business. So I advise my customers the same. Like, it's a constant change. Now, how do you do that? So one aspect that I honestly learned during my time in IBM, and it continued until my current day, is the human-centric design thinking. When you're when I go to think about anything with my customers, even if it's for the end user or an internal employee, which is the workforce that you're talking about, I put the journey of that person to reach that goal that they're trying, and then go to the technology side to enable that journey, right? Keeping the human in the middle is something that we have to do, and there are really very nice practices that are well developed to do that, like different design thinking methodologies, different ways, but it has to be embedded in the thinking and the innovation cycle of the enterprises. Now, this comes, of course, with rapid prototyping, rapid failing, giving the space for people to innovate. Even during my time, I've been part of, gratefully so, big organizations that has a research space, has a space for people to innovate. So, the 80-20 rule, 80% you're focusing on your of course, day-to-day job, the bottom line, the ROI of you being in that company, but there's a 20% of your time, or a certain portion of your time that needs to be given to the companies. Where are we going with the company? What's the future? What are we seeing from our customers that we can bring back to our companies, to the organization that we work in, to kind of innovate around it? So that feedback process needs to be as well there, with the space for people to innovate and kind of bring their ideas and their space to fail. It's okay. I mean, they need to have that kind of iterative process to and not be penalized. That's the word that I'm trying to use, without using the word penalized, but not be penalized for failing. So that instills a very good culture to help companies keep moving, right? Now, this comes, of course, with a proper base. So how do we prepare that base? It's data and data and data. That's, as Dr. Kathy mentioned, it's a space where we need to really put an effort. The data needs to be clean. The data needs to be in a proper, not necessarily a platform, but in a proper cleansed, governed data is a space where every company needs to invest in. Now, the investment aspect, and you mentioning the ROI of it, honestly speaking, I see that. I mean, the ROI, of course, there is a lot of space for us to see, the benefits, using the data here, using the data there, attracting more customers. All of that is usual business benefits of any innovation that comes. But the real, honestly, question today is a matter of survival. So it's not just a matter of, making more money anymore for companies or profit. It's a matter, am I relevant to what's coming next or not? So the ROI is really, keeping your company today or losing your business. So it came down to that. So I feel, there are different techniques that we can use, investing in emerging technologies and all of that, but without the right culture, without the right process, without the right people and enabling and empowering those people, technology just stands still and watches the profit goes down.
Absolutely.
So this is.
Dr. Kathy, would you like to add anything on that, especially with making sure corporates maybe adapt to all this change? You know how corporates can be really moving like huge elephants and maybe hindering this kind of innovation culture. What would you say that we can recommend to corporates in that sense?
Yeah, I think that there is, another shift, and I think that we've sort of hinted at it a little bit around this data issue, right? I think that we're starting to see the emergence of competition between ecosystems rather than just between corporations. So I think we're starting to see the emergence of, as I was sort of alluding to before, a data economy where the ecosystems are competing with one another. So we look at a company like Amazon. I'm picking on Amazon a lot. There are other companies available, guys. But for example, they have 43 subsidiaries. People talk about Amazon being a company, but it's actually an ecosystem. And a lot of the sort of interfaces it has are very porous, and it's been deliberately built that way through the use of digital technologies in order to enable it to take advantage of those different types of scenarios. We also see, lots of other different types of ecosystems, like the telecommunications is a very large ecosystem play, and you see that different companies collaborate very loosely together to make that industry. But I think we can definitely see that companies that are engaging in the data economy are sort of moving more easily towards this concept of an
Rola, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I think we lost Dr. Kathy for a second. But maybe while she's back, perhaps we already have almost 14 minutes left before we close it up and put our final words. Maybe I can already open it up for the audience questions, and I already have some in line. So basically, let's maybe get started with the first question. As businesses undergo digital transformation, how can they effectively manage workforce changes and upskill employees to meet new demands? And I think, Rola, you touched base on that a little bit, right?
Yes, look, prioritizing upskilling and reskilling is to keep pace. To be honest, is a big topic, and I'll pick on Amazon on this one because I know, they have a huge budget, over $700 million, and I've read it in a recent article. Investment to upskill their teams by 2025. So it's like a huge topic, and I think it's top of mind for every company. But on the other angle, Suraya, which is again now the models that we have, the structures that we have, the org structures, is hindering, and I see it in several setups. So being these new models around being agile methodologies, these pods, kind of trying to find a more innovative, more inclusive, even an inclusive structure that brings in different people with different capabilities that we were not looking at before, right? Somebody who's creative in drawing, for example, but has an ops job in the company. Why won't we bring that person in a pod where there is a UX design, for example, design for a website or the front end of a website? Why don't we use all of the capabilities of the person end to end rather than, by job description and so on? So there's a shift in org structures that is happening. I think that will also support the workforce and enabling people to upskill by doing it on the job rather than losing their job and then trying to find their way as what happened in the COVID kind of times, where there's a lot of people who quit or lost their jobs and ended up finding themselves in a completely different space than they were working in the beginning.
Absolutely. Dr. Kathy, we lost you for a second. I'm sure it's connection issues. Maybe we can use this remaining time to open it up for Q&A from the audience. So we already started with the first one with Rula, and maybe a few more that I selected. I think some of the questions coming from the audience we've already been tackling throughout, but maybe let me just touch on what we have not tackled. One question comes in: how do you envision the future role of artificial intelligence in fostering global peace, preventing conflicts, and promoting diplomatic efforts on a worldwide scale?
That's a really good question. I mean, I could say in some instances, I see it exacerbating the lack of peace and increasing a non-democratic process. I think that, the use of I think we should separate this whole discussion around digital technologies and helping us achieve democracy or, achieve peace. The only people or things in the world that can actually achieve peace are actually humans. And I think sort of asking digital technologies to do that on our behalves is, I think it's a bit lazy. I think that we have to, within the digital sort of sphere, realize that these technologies force us to have new discussions that are uncomfortable, sort of, the unintended consequences of these technologies. We can already see a lot of disinformation, in a lot of different elections around the world. Lots of people are very worried about, for example, deep fakes already, especially with the advent of generative AI. Creating them is actually scary quick, and very easy. You don't need to really be an advanced coder to do this sort of stuff anymore. And I think that sort of the whole thing about digital technologies for me, even though I am a geek and I've been an engineer pretty much, for too many years now, what digital technologies force us to do is take a stance and a deeper thought about what it means to be human and what it means to behave as a human within the world. And indeed, I think it is forcing us to think about what we actually need to do in order to, work together geopolitically across borders in a new and different way. So digital technologies can force us to create peace by forcing us to discuss things that otherwise we would sweep under the carpet.
Absolutely. That's definitely a very, 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 very interesting answer. Not sure if you would like to add on that. Maybe we can take your opinion as well, and then we move to the last question from the audience.
Honestly speaking, I'm listening to Dr. Kathy and I'm thinking about so many things that, happening right now. But what stands out to me as well, I mean, the deep fakes is one angle of it, but the news and the skewing of the public opinion with the news, with the fake news, of course. And we're seeing the effects of it on a daily basis right now, even with conflicts that are happening in the region. So this is very concerning, yes. How do we overcome it? I'm yet to see, honestly. Even as a technology person, I'm yet to see how do we overcome this.
Interesting. Then maybe one more question. Actually, we received many questions on the control of AI, and maybe if we want to rephrase most of those questions, as AI becomes more integrated into business strategies, how can leadership teams develop AI literacy to make informed decisions about its implementation and impact on the organization and remain in control? Will there ever be any kind of control over that? That would be my last question. Maybe Dr. Kathy, would you like to add on that?
I was going to say I missed the first half, so maybe Rola, if you start.
Yes. So basically, it's all around control of AI. So as it becomes more integrated into business strategies, how can leadership teams develop AI literacy to make informed decisions about its implementation and impact on the organization and remain, to some extent, in control?
Yeah, so I think that AI, raises huge challenges for the way we're actually running corporations in today's world. Traditionally, we have leadership that are not necessarily 100% data literate, or quite frankly, what will happen is if you take a large set of spreadsheets into a CEO or a other part of the C-suite, is they will listen to the presentation and then make their decision on gut instinct. So they will get the data and they'll make their gut decision instinct anyway. I think with the fact that technologies like AI are becoming more deeply embedded in the way that we do work and raising things like risk. You actually get quite a lot of third-party risk from things like generative AI. Demands a different type of literacy from leadership. It also demands a different type of organizational structure, actually. So the way that companies are structured will probably need to change. I think Rola already was mentioning that. And I think what we see in particular in countries like the UK is that there will need to be a transition. In the UK, a lot of the C-suite are made up of CFOs. So they're from accounting backgrounds. And many of them are really not ready for the digital challenge. So one of the things that we need to do is train the executive leadership of different companies to understand what these technologies really mean. And then we come back to the issue around education. What does it mean to be an educated person in the 21st century? It's not just getting your degree and then never doing any more updating of education, for example. So lifelong learning becomes critical, in particular for people in corporate leadership. So, for example, if I had remained only using the data knowledge that I was taught in my undergraduate degree, it would be, I would be useless, basically. So.
Sorry, Tareya, to add to that, honestly, what I see, and I'm talking probably from because I'm dealing with it again on a daily basis with my customers who are trying to adopt AI, and in the UAE, kind of in a fast manner. So what we advise is, of course, it has to start with, and of course, as Kathy mentioned, it starts with education. It needs to start way before you reach the job itself, right? But on the job and in organizations, in enterprises, you have to put a governance structure. You have to implement policies. You have to put it part of your ethical guidelines. You have to, bring it to a practical level. Try to even on your training. So just like we do trainings on security for people, make sure that you don't lose your password here. You don't click on that. Same thing. There has to be trainings on a quarterly basis, or whatever frequency that the company needs. But regular trainings with practical examples, with updated information from the field as to where are the risks. So there are practical guidelines on what to do for companies to make sure, at least at a very basic level, at a very foundational level, to educate people. And that includes leadership and starts with the leadership team, because what I've seen is they sway the direction, either towards ethics or, towards just opening it up and using AI the way they want to use it. And that ends up in of course, misuse of technology, as Dr. Kathy rightfully mentioned.
This was really a really interesting discussion. I'm sure more and more questions would come on what you just read, Rola, and also Dr. Kathy. But unfortunately, we are almost at the top of the hour. This session really ran quickly for me, at least. I really was interested in this discussion. But I was wondering if both of you have any final words to share before we close it up.
Please, Dr. Kathy.